Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to Fresh Baked. We are starting our construction update from the Pixar Pal around, looking down on the Marvel Land construction site and the future site of the Spider-Man attraction, taking over the Bugs Life Theater. And I'm stopping here right away because we're starting to see some real definition take place in terms of how the buildings, the facades of this whole section of Marvel Land, and how it's taking shape. We watched them get vertical on this second level, and you can kind of tell that they're, the pattern of the building heights are starting to compare nicely to the concept art. You can kind of see the way that is progressing. So this is going to be an interesting couple of weeks as we move forward, and I think they're going to move quickly on this. By the way, I don't know what they're doing down there with that with that. It looks like rebar. That wall, I don't believe that concrete wall was there last week. There was a lot of activity last week, a lot of earth moving equipment and stuff happening on the ground. So I'm not sure where we were. If you look back at that video, can't really tell what they're doing. But this sort of concrete barrier has propped up with that, which I assume is rebar. It looks like rebar, but it's certainly oddly shaped. So if anybody can lend a hand on identifying why it is that way, probably by this time next week it won't matter. We won't even see that rebar, but I'm curious myself. But yeah, this structure, you can see a lot of mixing of the well, you know what? Actually, I don't know what is the difference between those kinds of steels, the gray steel and the sort of rusted colored steel. There you go. There again is the crane we were looking at last week, and they're starting to build that second level around that crane a little bit. As a matter of fact, it looks like the crane is almost extending from within it, and there's a gap on the roof line of that raised structure. And I'm going to stop here once more because this is an interesting thing. Initially, we thought that this area here was going to connect with the tissue box and make one long, connected piece of facade or building. And it was all going to be Spider-Man. But this is pretty much the end of that Spider-Man attraction. And if you, were to compare it to some of the overheads that we saw from Bio Reconstruct a few weeks ago, you can see that there's quite a bit of distance between this area and the tissue box. As a matter of fact, well, let me say this. It now looks like that area, that large surface is for some other purpose, some other show purpose, possibly a Quinjet. We're not sure. But that seems like a possibility. As a matter of fact, we're going to take a deeper dive into this in a video on Fresh Bake Presents, where we're going to sort of map out all the possibilities and how, what we're seeing today is going to look, try to visualize, try to imagine how the finished product will look and compare that to the concept art. And I think it's going to be an interesting video. So check out Fresh Bake Presents very soon. Hopefully I'm going to try to work that into all the Star Wars coverage that's coming up this week. I'm going to be 100% in the dungeon for the next week or two. But look out for that. But I feel like that's a definite possibility. And that is, by the way, thanks also to Tustin, who suggested both that and the Spider-Man possibilities. He's been really watching this closely and identifying how these facades are developing and comparing that to the concept art. And I think it makes a lot of sense. But for now, we'll move on and take a look at the tissue box there. They've put in a plastic coating over the front of that. So, yeah, they took it out probably because they're going to put a new face on it. And then, eventually we'll see something new developed there. Now, the concept art doesn't show us that part of the land. So we won't know what that's going to look like or how that's going to peel. The concept art only shows basically to the end of that Bugs Life theater area. So now we're going to take a look here at the area that's, basically occupied now by Mount Gamora. You can't really see much of what's going on over here, literally at all. It is all obscured by that giant mound of dirt and all that earth-moving equipment. And there is a lot of it, just like there was last week. They are doing something major behind Mount Gamora there. We're assuming it's trench-type stuff. As a matter of fact, if we stop here, you can see there's a ladder propping up, coming up out of the ground there. Now, I don't know how big that ladder was to begin with, but the fact that they have a ladder suggests that it's Not the kind of area that you can just jump out of on foot. You need to climb out of. So I'm guessing probably at least 3 or 4 feet, maybe more. In the meantime, we'll continue. And actually, if we stop here, you can see another ladder right there coming up out of the ditch, which means that the earth moving equipment that we can see behind it is on the other side of the trench, most likely. So it's kind of snaking through the land a little bit. Not a particularly wide trench, I would imagine, because I don't know, we'd probably see some of the trench if it were any wider than, I don't know, a few 5, 6 feet or something like that. But yeah, you can see the ladder coming up out of the ground there. That is interesting. Back on this side of things, just to see if I can't poke my head into the Spider-Man attraction to see if I can't. I pushed it even further here as we pause to see if I can't identify anything in that shaded area. You can't see nothing in there, but I am curious what those two green, I don't know what those are. Those green poles, I guess. They have kind of a rather odd shape to them. So they look like they serve some sort of function. Again, if anybody has any ideas, Dustin wasn't sure what those might be, so I'm not sure if they have any actual function or if I'm trying to make something out of nothing, which is a possibility. I tend to do that. We're going to see something happening here very soon. They are making quick progress. They're building this, I should say, faster than they were building Galaxy's Edge. However, they also are not building it from total scratch either, nor is it as complex as Galaxy's Edge was. Let's get down on the ground, and you can see again there the crane and that raised section of the building there. Not as big, that the vertical area there, not as big as I had thought it would be, or as big as it looks in the concept art. Just an observation. Let's turn around. Let's look at Emotional Whirlwind, where it's starting to get to that point like we see in a lot of projects where we can see less and less progress without, I mean, because there's a lot going on, so the details don't stand out like they used to. But we have seen now that those areas are starting to, I'm guessing the pink metal poles there are still, I'm thinking that's turnstiles, digital turnstiles, and there we see that the control panel has been installed. As of now, it looks like straight functional use. No decorative stuff has been added on there as of yet, but they probably will for fun. And we'll keep browsing here, looking for something. And there's probably stuff to see, but it's just hard for me to make it out. Especially through the credit coaster tracks. I'm still getting used to calling it that. I'm not sure. I'm trying to decide how I feel about the design of this place. It has a distinct, it's sort of a, kind of a Raleigh Crump feel, which we'll show you here in a minute. I feel like they're mixing genres a little bit. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it's kind of fantastic. But I suppose it should be Dream World and all that stuff, or imagination. Now let's pause here for a second, because here's an example of what I'm talking about. This is the first piece of Raleigh Crumpism, as I would call it, that we can see in the concept art. That thing, as we focus in on it, is just bizarre looking. It's not anything you would find in normal. It's dreamlike. It's imaginary, which again makes sense, I guess, for Inside Out. But I compare it to some of the mobiles that Raleigh Crump has designed, and I'm trying to place where that is in the concept art. I have to think it's this piece over here, because it's very close to the red canopy that's going to be in the the guest queue area, which means that this area right here is probably the wall or the beginnings of the wall, and that's going to extend out further too. I'm really looking forward to seeing how that area develops because, you know, I very much like the way they do Jesse's Critter Carousel, or where they did it with that, you know, with Jesse out front, big, you know, colorful, vibrant, a lot of, you know, it just feels like it's eye-catching out front. And the facade that we see in the concept art for Inside Out also appears to be very eye-catching, bigger even than Jesse's Critter Carousel. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this develops and to watch it, you know, take life. Okay, let's go over to the Downtown Disney parking lot, where we're starting at the bag check area at Downtown Disney. And as soon as I got there, I found this enormous hole. And for the life of me, I cannot figure out, and neither can Tustin, why they needed to I mean, what is the purpose of this enormous hole that they've dug here? It's not particularly deep. It's not the depth of it that is curious. It's the width. It's the size of it. You know, how... The only thing we can figure is water, drainage, sewage, that kind of thing. And they need to connect it. And you'll see later on that there's sewage pipes that they've got standing by ready for installation. But what is it here? This area of the parking lot doesn't serve any function in relation to what they're doing with the bridge, the pedestrian bridge, as it connects from downtown, or from the Pixar Pals parking structure and Downtown Disney. We're a long way from that. We're on the opposite side of the parking lot. So there's some feature in this part of the lot that needed to be just eviscerated, I guess is the only thing I could think of. That's a very large area that they have dug up. And I mean, and it's still pretty deep. Not deep like a pool, not deep like they're going to build something here, like foundation deep necessarily, just wide. But it is still, what, 3 or 4 feet of a hole that they've dug there? Curious. There goes the monorail and a big pile of dirt. A lot of stuff staged and ready to go. And there you can see the pipes that I was referencing before for sewage right up ahead there. And now we got our first look at that. They're ready for concrete for the bridge where it touches down in the parking structure. They're ready to pour it. By this time next week, I figure that they're going to have the concrete will be poured there. I moved up a bit. Now we'll examine a little more closely, I should say, and watch how it compares to the bridge. You can see where it's going to connect to the bridge there. And then here's a view from pulling out from where it connects from Pixar Pals, that crosses the street, arrives in Downtown Disney, and then makes a sharp turn left to get out of the way of the parking lot so they can preserve some of those Downtown Disney parking spaces. And then it'll curl to the right a little bit and touch down right behind those forms. And then here we are on the street, Magic Way, and that's where the bridge connects. Cool. So cool. Okay, I'm starting with this shot from the Pixar Pals parking structure to illustrate that my idea for the tram path was obliterated by the fact that they're putting paving stones down on the area where I thought they were going to put that's where I thought they were going to put blacktop there. If that was going to be tram path, if that was going to be the direction, if the tram was going to turn right after picking up guests and go down that path, that would be blacktop right there. It wouldn't be paving stones. So that's out of the question. As a matter of fact, as I reflect on this now, that was a terrible guess in the first place, because that's a rather serpentine path that it would have to take, because the trams are long, and the tram would be, as it goes down that path, will be turning left into and under the Mickey and Friends parking structure before the back end of the tram had finished making its right turn, so it would look like a letter S. Now, these things are bendy, they can curve and turn, but why would you force that? Why would that be your natural, there'd have to be a better way to design things. So I don't think that they would have done that on purpose. So the most likely option is that it's going to find some other direct path. Right there is where the tram is going to exit the Pixar Pals parking structure. And I think the most likely thing is that it's going to go straight across and under Mickey and Friends on the other side. There's probably an opening that we can't see on the other side of that stairwell, the concrete on the other side of that stairwell. There's probably an opening where the tram can go. We'll pick that up here in a minute, actually, because we got another shot from overhead. But here's a long view of the guest access to the parking structure, and you can see the paving stones are pretty much all installed. And we'll stop here and take a quick look in, a little tighter look to see the bag check area develop. We saw the tables there being set up last week. And so there's just an array of bag check stations there. I wonder how many they're going to have going at one time. That's going to be an impressive process on a busy day. So many bodies. Looks like the focus right now is the escalators, and then the other end that we saw where they were putting those paving stones down on what I thought was going to be a tram path. But you can see, these guys, that's where all the focus is right now. By the way, those guys look like they're down. You know what? Hold up. They're just behind a pallet, a stacked pallet of paving stones. I don't think that's... I thought for a second they were lower than the other guys. It's an optical illusion. And there we go. There's the drop-off area right there. And I'm just waiting for them to finish this turn. You can see the concrete curb there, getting ready to turn right and under the guest hub. Now here's that view I was talking about. Okay, this is the area between Mickey and Friends and Pixar Pals. Lots of vegetation getting ready. And matter of fact, I had thought of, why are they putting vegetation there if this is all backstage? Maybe it's because that's a tram path. And that's still a possibility. But right here, let's stop. Because this is why I think that you can see that is definitely a pickup area. That's a queue, for guests to get ready to get on the tram. And I don't know how obvious it is, in the video, but that area is constructed at an angle to everything else. You can see that it crosses. If the parking structure, the Pixar Palace parking structure, this area right here creates a corner, then that area is at an angle. It's not straight, it's angled. The tram would have to make a very sharp left if it weren't going straight. And if it were gonna follow that path in between the Pixar Palace structure and the Mickey and Friends, which it can. I've seen vehicles go all the way around the parking structure before, so it's not out of the question, but it seems more likely because of the curvature. Why would they bend it? Why would they curve it? Why would it be angled like this if it went to point the tram in a certain direction? So I feel like it is going to go straight through and into the Mickey and Friends parking structure directly across. And there's a close-up of that waiting area. And we'll conclude this episode with some finished projects from around the resort, namely the Adventureland sign. It is back in its, the state that we have become accustomed to. If you're not sure, here's a look at here's a shot of how it looked before they took it down. Pretty much the same. I don't know if it's exactly the same. People with a more astute eye might be able to spot some differences, but I mean, for my money, it looks the same, and I probably won't notice any differences if there are any. But I feel like they did restore it, and now you've got, basically what you've got now is just more room for guests to get through there, which is great. We needed that. I couldn't understand why they put that thing over there in the first place. Oh, that's right. They built that for Indiana Jones. I remember somebody telling me that little hut and that little HOV lane over there, the carpool lane, was built for the extended queue. That seems odd for Indiana Jones when it stretched all the way down that way. I got no reason not to believe that, I guess, but who knows. And then here's the last remaining curb removal. As I'm showing this to Adam, we're ready for rope drop. They've taken, that's the last one. That's the last curb to have disappeared. And I'm still trying to get adjusted to that. And as we mentioned on Monday, also here's the Pizza Planet facade. That is done. Now, I'm going to stop here because I mentioned in the video on Monday that I felt like this is great. I just like it just how it is. I like a simple, understated facade. I'm very grateful that those stupid aliens were taken out of the front. I didn't like that temporary banner at all, nor did I like those aliens out front hanging it, and I much prefer this. Having said that, I don't think now, having examined this a little further, I don't think this is the finished product. Well, I should say that there's at least a very good chance that there are going to be additional things done to it, added to it, because they did not remove the placeholders for the, where they did have the aliens hanging up there, and where the old Pizza Port logo, or whatever you want to call it, was affixed to that facade. Those placeholders are still there. If this was meant to be a clean look, the finished clean look for this facade, they would have taken the placeholders down, I think, and they still could. So it's not like they're, it's out of the question. They're definitely putting something up there. But the fact that they left those placeholders behind suggests to me that it's possible we are going to get something that says Pizza Planet, perhaps. I just hope it's not ridiculous, like with those aliens and that stupid banner, which was offensive to me. I don't know why I feel so personal about that. Anyway, last stop. We looked at this. There were construction walls here up until last week, and we weren't sure what they were doing. It was nothing major. Basically, they took out some of the planter. They narrowed things up a little bit to make room for strollers. That's all that was. This used to be closed in more. There was a sort of a narrow entrance to get in there, and then you would walk that little path. Now they've made it a very wide entrance, and it's almost as if it's become a place to, park the strollers, probably inside there more. There weren't very many at the time, but I can see a lot of strollers being parked in there while there's still being room for guests to walk through and go see Toy Story 4 preview in Tomorrowland. Okay. With that, we're going to call it a day. Thanks, guys, for watching. We'll see you next time. Fresh baked. We've got lots more videos for you to see, so grab a churro and check out some of our other videos and have your mind blown by how much fun we're having. We truly are the best of Disney Bake Fresh Daily. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you next time. Fresh baked!